and I am going to talk tonight about a component of our election planning, specifically the communications plan. And you guys have been workhorses tonight, Jake and Amelia. I'm impressed that you guys are still with us and paying attention. So I'm going to go through this pretty quick. It's just some highlights of the communications plan that was in the packet. But for us, in terms of communicating with our public about our plan, time is critical. The Fair Campaign Practices Act shuts down our ability to communicate with the public in regards to something on the ballot once you guys choose to send something to the voters. Whether it is a mill levy override like we have a proposal now, or a bond issue like we had in 2014. So a lot of the plan that you saw has components of it that are already underway and really continue to ratchet up here within our community over the next couple of months. So there is a brand that we have settled on around this. It focuses on building our future community, has a lot of positive connotations, speaks to what is done in the classroom every day. There's a little homage there to our previous district brand, but also many components of this do include actual buildings, so I thought that made sense there. And then there's some alternate logos. Here are versions of that. I envision these being on buttons that our staff members, should they choose to wear them, could wear them as we head into next school year, to maybe help bring up conversation about the plan and that sort of thing. So again, that was in your packet. I would summarize some of those tables that I had in the packet by this timeline graphic here. There are several things happening at once within the plan that I presented to you. A couple of things here. Obviously, work on the plan continues. That will continue to move forward from Mr. Ridgway and the rest of our staff, and you guys as well, until you put something on the ballot, should you choose to do so. And we will continue to educate our community and communicate about this, although with time, once something goes to ballot, the way in which we do that would change, and we would have to rely on community members to run an active campaign at that point. The school district can't do that, can't utilize taxpayer funds to advocate for a ballot issue, but from the communications department, we'll have media interest at that point as the election gets closer, and so we would focus our efforts there. Lastly, I would encourage you and all of our staff, our students as well, and any interested community members to learn about and share information about the plan with neighbors and coworkers. There will be a wealth of information available on our website starting next week, and a wealth of printed material as well that will be coming off the presses here next month. So again, that was in the communication matrix that you saw in the plan. So what I wanted to do with you this evening was just give you an opportunity to ask me questions or give me suggestions from what I presented in that plan.
I have to say I love the bringing back the schoolhouse, so thank you. That warmed my heart very much when I saw that. That was the first thing I noticed, so thanks for that.
Anybody else?
I just mentioned an organization I belong to. We were presented D11's plan for their election. So he commented the 20s coming out, so getting out to the larger community.
Right.
It's started already,
right.
And it sounds like it's going to be a pretty noisy ballot this year with everything going on. So I think reaching out to the community sooner is a great idea.
Right, and I sent an email yesterday to the Eastern Plains Chamber of Commerce to have myself, our chief officers, and possibly one or two of you guys to take part in their March and April meeting. In that plan were several mailings to every household in our community, and some other different pieces of information as well. I do want to publicly stress to staff, and in particular our teachers, our community really values our teachers, more so than something I might say, or one of our chief officers might say, or frankly something you guys might say. They're the ones that they've entrusted their children with every day. So to our teachers, their support is important, but how they choose to communicate, and I would suggest hopefully advocate for the plan, is a very important part of that success. And so part of the plan does have a lot of staff engagement as well, so that positive word of mouth can hopefully go out into the community about it as well. Mr. Butcher.
Cautionary tale on
Mhm.
that piece. Make sure it's very inviting to staff,
Right.
rather than feeling like they're
Right.
being pushed to do something.
Absolutely.
The way in which they're engaged will make a huge difference on how they feel about it come fall.
Right.
And I've seen it go both ways,
Right.
depending on who is doing the engaging and who is doing the talking. And if it feels like something forced or anything, if there's any kind of thing where it goes down that road,
Right.
you lose everybody immediately, and there becomes a lot of anger really quick. And
Sure.
I think you're smart enough to know that,
Sure.
but it kind of, that seed needs to be planted to let's be very careful
Right.
and remember there are precious staff that
Absolutely,
We want
right.
them to feel
And we
like
would
we
never
value that
ask,
piece.
my office would never force that on anybody, and I know I can speak
Right.
for everybody else in leadership as well. So we'll definitely work to do that, and I think the way that we'll approach it is expressed in what we sort of branded the campaign as, or our informational campaign, in terms of building our future community. That's how we want this to be. So should a staff member so choose to want to speak positively and get out and support that, we would engage that and welcome that from them. So. Lastly, I would like to ask you guys. So in the plan, there was a page here for all of your signatures and for the chief officers as well. So I would actually like to ask you to formally move this forward in February to kind of accept this communication plan and to sign it should you choose to do so. So that's what I would like to ask you to do tonight.
So we're essentially looking for a resolution of support. Is that what we're thinking?
I'd like you to
Is that
sign the actual plan. I don't know how that works
Yeah.
from a.
I'm just asking what the technical piece is. Anybody?
We have signed resolutions. We've also signed pledges. Remember, we signed a pledge not to request or offer multi-year contracts. That was a pledge. Mr. Farmer is here and might have insight. Is there any parliamentary protocol for the board formally committing to a communications plan?
Just as Tim's walking up, I guess I would say I don't think it's a resolution of support yet, because again, part of this early communication is still learning about it. There's at least the possibility that we could end up down the road and say, no, we're not going to produce something on the ballot. So the communication plan is as much part of the learning process, and you continue to provide that advocacy and that support to continue that endeavor.
Yeah, to Brett's point, I think that this wouldn't necessarily amount to a formal adoption by the board of support of the measure, as much as I would say it's not required to sign it, but you're certainly welcome to voluntarily sign it if you choose to.
And I think as a board, I'd like to know that we agree to a marketing plan
Well, exactly.
Um,
I just don't know what the
going forward.
procedural piece is of, do we put this on as a?
I don't think it requires us to get a tattoo, so.
It's good to ask the question though, because we don't know if it's going to be a conflict, because these election rules are just so complicated sometimes. So, hey, I'm all for it. I think you're doing a great job, so I'm good.
And if I may, since I'm up here, since it came up earlier, in terms of teacher support for the initiative, you might also encounter a situation where teachers are opposing this particular measure, and be particularly sensitive to that as well. This clearly falls into an area of protected speech where any type of retaliation or disciplinary, even if it's not sort of on its face retaliatory towards their opposition to it, if it could be interpreted that way, just be very sensitive to respecting people's right to free speech on this.
What about the student council?
Yeah,
Not you.
Oh.
Matt. With the
Yeah,
students
their
would
names
also
are
have
on it.
a right.
well, yeah, I know the students have a route too. I know that.
Right.
But I was thinking, maybe you can get some support from them also with this plan. What do you think?
But I don't know if necessarily it makes sense for the students to get on board with the communications plan per se. I mean, the whole goal of the communications plan is to inform the community. And frankly, I just want a yes or no vote to be informed. That's my goal. So whether it's staff or the larger community, that frankly is the ultimate goal of this plan.
I think to your question, David, we did present the plan to the student leadership group last Friday, and if Amelia and Jake are willing to comment on what their thoughts on it were, both the plan itself and what if they have any thoughts or ideas on how and whether we should carry it out to the larger student audience, I would love to hear some of that.
I think that us as students, that we have an idea of what's going on in the district, and that we have an idea of this plan and what's in our process for going into the future. That it's better for us, for a certain number of us, to have an idea about this than the whole student population, because we're not all going to be on board with all this. We're not all going to want to know every single little inside piece, but if some of us know every single little inside piece, we can inform the others about what they would want to know specifically. So I feel like us knowing what we know, we can go forward with it and tell our peers and our teachers and our community members what our perspective of it is as students.
Anybody else?
All right. So move for whatever is appropriate for us to have on the
Or
for the
nothing.
next
I have to
meeting.
communicate it anyways, so that's what we're going to do. But
No, I think you have everyone's support. Whatever is the appropriate way for that to be on our agenda, take care of for next time, please.